Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and welcome to the AWS Cloud Project Bootcamp. And in this video, we are going to finally implement the client-side JavaScript upload for S3, which is the whole purpose of this week, is to finish off that thumbing pipeline. One thing that we might need to do as an addition to is to set up a custom CloudFront function or Lambda Edge function if we want to serve up a default one in the case that there is not one found, because I think that's how we would do it. But let's go ahead and get things rolling. So I've been opening up my account here. I just launched a new workspace, and it's actually still even going here. So we'll just wait a little while for that to settle. But we're going to need some kind of SDK. So we'll go to AWS SDK. That is client side. There is one for JavaScript. It's actually the one that I want to use first. So it's surprising that came up first, unless Google's listening and they're just serving me up the best page. But there is server side, which is not what we want. We want it for web applications. So this is the one that we're looking for, is the AWS SDK for JavaScript. And here it's saying the JavaScript version 3, reference guides describes in detail version 3. I'm just making sure that it is version 3. It says it's up there, so interesting that they have that there, but that could just be the reference, which might be enough for us to get started. Not that this would be hard for us to use. I don't really feel like I need instructions because it's going to be quite simply AWS SDK install like that. Yeah, so we've actually used this. We've already used this somewhere in our Node.js application, but how do you distinguish it from the server side one? That's actually what I'm quite surprised about, because it looks basically the same to me. Maybe it's the same one. Yeah, it's the same one. Okay, so there really isn't much of a distinction there, but the AWS SDK version 3 is a rewrite of version 2 with some great features. It's modular, that's great. First class TypeScript support, okay, whatever. New middleware stack, that actually is kind of interesting. So yeah, AWS uses middleware. Everyone uses middleware, so there's some interesting stuff there. So I guess you can just use client and add middle stack in between. That's kind of interesting. But anyway, we want to upload to S3. So that is what we're mostly interested in. So I guess we just use it per usual as normal, and it probably should work. That's what it seems like to me. Anyway, so this should be ready to go. So we need to do our prepare. So we'll do that. We made that in our last week here. I'm just going to go here to the CLI. Bin or setup, sorry, setup. Prepare doesn't work. We found out there was more work to be done for that, right? Or bootstrap, I'm saying setup. So that will get up some initial things, a couple files we need, the envars, and log us into what you have there. But it actually looks like the generate env is not working, probably for the same reason the other one isn't working. So we're just really not having a whole lot of luck here. But we'll have to fix those scripts at some point. Bonus points if you figure out better routing for it, but right now I guess we're going to have to manually do it. And so the back end and the front end are generated. That way, when we do Docker Compose up, this will work as expected. So we'll get the app running. And so where is this code going to be? Well, we are putting it in the profile form page. And so this is where this is going to start. I suppose we could probably abstract this out into its own library because we're doing a lot of stuff with AWS SDK, but we'll see if we need to do that level of refactoring. We're going to have to install it into our package JSON in our front-end React application. We can start doing that right now. In fact, we probably should have installed it first before we started this up, since we'll probably have to restart. We'll have to compose up and compose down before that works. So we'll let that stuff download in the background anyway, because it has to download images and it will speed it up on the next down and up. But we want to install the AWS SDK for S3, so I'm going to do this. And I'm going to just paste that in, and we'll say S3 -- save. And it's not going to work if we don't do npm install in front of it, so we'll do that. And so that will install the client S3. And we actually already have code for this because we wrote a Node.js function that does stuff like the Sharp.js stuff. So we probably can just pull from there. And if it's used for Node.js and JavaScript, it probably works for both. So that is installing, which is great. While that is going on, we're going to be productive and utilize that time to look up our process images JavaScript function. Here on the right-hand side, we have the stuff here. So we actually placed it over here in the S3 image processes. It gets a client, it uploads the image. So this is the code we're mostly interested in. So I'm going to go here and make a new function. We'll just call this one const upload S3 upload. And we'll say equals async. It doesn't need to be async, I don't think. But anyway, we'll just do this for now. And I'll just pass the event here so we can see that. Well, if that one's async, why wouldn't they all be async? Yeah, we'll make it async. I think it can be async. And then we'll need some click event. So it's in our form, and we will place it here. We'll say div class equals, open another page. I did not necessarily want that to do that. Here, and so I just need like a button or something for the upload, or like a click event. So upload. I'm also noticing that I didn't put class names on these, so let's just update that now, or it's just going to give us warnings later on, and those are always really annoying. So we'll do this, and we'll just say upload avatar, and then we'll say onClick equals upload. What do we call that? Just upload? S3 upload. S3 upload. Okay, so this is where the upload code is going to be. So we'll go ahead and grab the client. And we'll go there. The next thing is we want to actually upload it. So I'm going to assume that it uses the same stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and try this. The other thing is, like, it's going to upload, but the question is, like, we don't pass in our environment variables server side or client side. So I guess the question is, what are we doing there? I kind of feel like AWS probably wrote a tutorial on this, but we will, or like a blog post or something, but I'm going to look up the client S3. Because what I'm curious about is, like, how do you configure the client when it's JavaScript side, right? Because you're not really, I just noticed my hair sticking up. There, that's fixed. It's because I got a bad haircut because I live in a small town and I don't want to pay money for bad barbers that I have to wait forever to go see. So I cut my own hair, but then sometimes my hair is just sticking up because it's such a poorly cut hair. But at least I did not have to pay for it or wait for it. Okay, so there is probably something here for the client. That's what I'm mostly interested in. Maybe it's under settings. No, where is it? Okay, I want to find out the client part. Not that helpful. We'll click into this again. SDK for JavaScript. Configuring it. Before you use the SDK JavaScript, you must invoke the web service using the API. You must configure the SDK. AWS region in which you will request services, the credentials that authorize you. Okay, but this is client side. We cannot provide credentials because then people will have them. So there has to be a different browser script considerations. The following topic describes this. Unlike SDK for JavaScript version 2, version 3 is not provided as a JavaScript file with support included default services. Because I'm used to V2, now they have V3. Instead, V3 enables you to bundle include the browser-only SDK JavaScript files you require, reducing the overhead. Recommend using Webpack to bundle the required SDK for files. That's fine. But how do we do authentication? Version 3 no longer supports Browser Builder. I'm not sure what that is. To minimize bandwidth usage of browsers, we recommend you use named modules. Okay, that's fine. How do I configure this? It's not telling me. So let's see if there's any code examples. Okay, let's just look it up. AWS SDK JavaScript client side credentials. How? Okay, but this is client side, not server side. It's really not easy to find this. Anyway, I definitely have code where I've done this before. So what I'm going to do is just go dig through my repositories and take a look at what I've done. I'll be back in a moment, okay? Okay, so just thinking about it for a second, like I looked at my own code and I didn't see that similar, but now I'm trying to remember, maybe we need a pre-signed URL, because I just remembered that it's possible that with a pre-signed URL that we could then post to it. So maybe what we really need is not the SDK client side, but this URL to upload to. And yeah, it's actually doing that where it's going /uploads. So maybe that is what our actual solution is. And the SDK we just installed makes no sense. So I'm not really sure if we actually had to install that. So what I'm going to do is go back to my package.json. Actually, the easiest way is just to knock these out of here. And so this implementation does not make any sense whatsoever. I apologize. I should have spent a little bit more time just doing that before jumping into it. But anyway, what we'll do is go back over here and we will need to take these out because this no longer makes any sense. Okay, so maybe that's what we need is the pre-signed URL. So, I mean, they're still using the SDK. I'm not sure why. Maybe that's the Lambda. That's probably why. Yeah, exactly. So I'll be back in a second, okay? All right, so I was just looking at my implementation in actually TeacherSeed, how we do it, because we do it like 3 or 4 times over. And so what we need to do is first generate out a pre-signed URL that we're going to use. And so the way we can trigger that is that we'll have like a file upload. And when a file is attached, then at that point, we can call an API endpoint to our server to say, hey, give us back a pre-signed URL for a particular location. And then we can use that to then do the upload. The only part that I'm not finding is the upload part. But I'm sure I can just kind of fill in the gap, because really you're just going to do an HTTP request to that. So I'm sure we can figure that out. So what I'm going to do is I guess we need to really do some Python before we do our JavaScript. So we'll open up, and I mean, like, it's not that we have to do it in Flask. Like, technically this could be a Lambda that has an API endpoint that's hit, but I'm just trying to think here for a second. Is there any reason why we can't just hit a Lambda? Let me just think for a second. I guess it doesn't really matter because we're building our application in such a monolithic way, but it's monolithic, but I mean, like, we're breaking up per service. So if we want to move that over to API Gateway Lambda later, the thing that I just don't want to get into is trying to solve the JWT verification token. We do have to do that when we get to the AppSync part, but I'm not sure if that's something I want to do right now. I know I keep going away, but let me go away for just one more second and I'm going to make a decision, okay? You know what? I'm going to say screw it. Let's go use API Gateway and have a Lambda that's going to return stuff. I don't know. I just think if there's an opportunity for us to use a new service, we can, and then we can figure out our authorizers. So what I'm going to do is go over here, and I want to go to API Gateway. Now, API Gateway is very cost effective, so I'm not really worried about spend. There is a free tier for it. We can even double check that. So we'll say API Gateway free tier. You can see that you get like a lot of requests and stuff. So I'm not concerned about spend whatsoever. There are different ways of making APIs. So we have HTTP API, REST API. Creates a REST API that's only accessible from within a VPC. That wouldn't be true because we have to go through the internet to get it. It's not like the application's communicating to it. So it has to be public facing. We have HTTP API and REST API. One is older and one is newer. I kind of always forget which one it is. This has to be the newer one because it's low latency and cost effective. Not that this is going to cost us much, but what we care about is, do we have authorizers? So like if we do, I don't usually use this one, but let's just go take a look at it. Does it support authorizers? Well, let's just look up Lambda authorizers for API Gateway. And see what can be done there. Formula's custom authorizers is a way for you to implement custom authorization. but is it for both? So this one's under REST. So I'm not confident whether the HTTP one has it. It might be REST, the old one. And it's not like it's one's old and one's new. It's one's more, well, one is older, but one has more functionality and the other one is more streamlined for cost. It was Lambda integrations. In my slides, I definitely have a comparison between the two. We'll go here. Well, they even have a JWT authorizer, so that sounds good. So you use a Lambda authorizer to use a Lambda function to control access. So it sounds like the HTTP 1 can do it. JWT is part to restrict clients to your APIs. If you configure JWT authorizer for the route of API, validate JWTs that clients side submit. API gateway allows or denies requests based on token validation and optionally scopes in the token. So, I mean, that one could be what we want. Before you create the JWT authorizer, you must register a client application with an identity provider. Update a route to use a JWT authorizer by using the AWS CLI. What do we want to do? Well, we're just going to go ahead and do it. That's how I like to do things. So we're going to go and build ourselves an HTTP API. For integrations here, it says Lambda. I mean, that's where we want it to go. CA Central, we don't necessarily have the function yet. So what we'll do is make our way over to Lambda. And we've been using, what we've been using to make Lambdas right now, so far it's been CDK, right? So we've been using CDK to do that. We do need to have a Lambda in place to do this. What other integrations do we have? Just HTTP. So I guess there's that. Do we have to actually have it right now? This one's just going to be called Crutter.com. We'll go next. Oh, it's not going to let us do it. Another thing with Lambda is we could create a Lambda and have it invoke on HTTP requests, but that's not really great. We should always have it behind API gateway. So let's make our way over to Lambda and just make ourselves a new Lambda. And technically, we could use anything for this. So if we can use anything, why don't we use Ruby? Because I like Ruby and it's super easy to use and it's less of a headache for me. So let's go here and we'll say pre-signed URL. Well, this is for upload S3. What should we call this? It's for Crutter. So we'll say Crutter and then we'll say avatar upload key or URL. We'll just call it this. And we'll look for Ruby. And it's still Ruby 2.7. Where am I going to get Ruby 3? But 2.7 is totally fine. x86-64 is fine. ARM is more efficient, but I'm not sure what happens if we move over to that. So I'm not that comfortable with it yet. Create a Lambda with basic permissions. How about with a template policy? Because this tells us what we have access to already. So there's a few things that we want to have access to. I mean, it's mostly just S3, right? Config rules, read-only permissions. I guess we'll have to create our own one. And that looks fine to me. We'll go down below here, advanced settings, enable code signing, enable function URL. So that's if we wanted to have a URL served up. I don't want to do that. I don't think that's a good idea. Enable tags, that is totally fine. We'll go ahead and create that function. And this function will be probably so small that we can just write it and then place it in here with a little trouble. I guess the other thing is that we have the Crutter avatar upload function, but we also need a function to validate the JWT token. So that actually is a separate step that we have to do. Isn't there that JWT thing that we're looking at that we can use for Cognito? So maybe that's something that we can look at. But for now, what I want to do is generate out a pre-signed URL. So I'm going to make my way over to the Ruby SDK, version 3 for AWS. And here we have all our stuff here. So we're looking for S3. So I'm just typing S3 in my search. And then down below here, we will find it. The way it works is that we need to call the client first. So S3, where are you? Client. because we always need to initialize the client. So I'm going to go ahead and do this client side first. So we'll go into our Lambdas. I'll make a new folder here. This one's going to be called Crutter Upload Avatar. And we'll make a new file here. And this one will be called, we'll see, like they call it index here. I like calling them functions, so I'll just call it function RB. And so we'll bring in the SDK. So this will be like require AWS SDK S3 probably. That's probably what it is. We'll make a new gem file. Actually, we'll generate one out because that's a lot easier. So I'll go up here and I will go to the top one and I will CD into AWS and then into Lambdas, into Crutter Upload Avatar. And to generate a gem file, it's bundle init, I think. There we go. So a gem file is the way you manage libraries. It's just like your requirements.txt or your package.json. It's just easier to use. So we'll type in gem here, and I want the AWS SDK S3. I think that's what it is. And I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to do a bundle install. That's all it takes to install those requirements. So it's installing just the AWS SDK S3 there. These should pick up our environment variables, but we can define these explicitly by saying AWS region. We don't really need to set those. It should pick them up. It should pick up all these credentials. But we'll see. Maybe it will complain here in a moment that's like it can't find it. The nice thing about Ruby is you don't have to have parentheses if you don't want them. So you just remove them, and this is still a function, but other languages don't necessarily let you do that. So we got the client, and the next thing is to generate a pre-signed URL. So here it's pretty much listing out all the stuff we need. So we'll type in pre-signed URL, and it didn't get what I want. Interesting. So I'll go AWS SDK Ruby pre-signed URL and try this again. Oh, right, it's called pre-signer. So we'll go here. And we do have the pre-signer. Of course, we could be using ChatGPT to generate this out, but I don't mind. I like going through the documentation here and grabbing it. At least I know exactly what I'm getting. So there's that. But doesn't it need the client? How's that going to work? All right, let's go ask ChatGPT. Write a Ruby write code that will return a pre-signed URL for upload for Ruby version 3 AWS SDK. I'm just confused because that pre-signer is there. Yeah, I guess that's another way you can do it. Let me see here. So, yeah. That looks right. Let me go over here. I guess we don't have to load a client like that. Huh. I've done this a lot, like implemented S3. I'm just going to go take a look at my implementation in another project. This will just take a second. It doesn't matter how often you do this stuff, you are always going to be second guessing yourself when you are working in the cloud. So I'm going to find this here in a moment. Shouldn't take too long. Maybe it's in my initializers. I'm just looking through my Rails code base for this. Config, initializers, AWS. So here's the file that I have. So yeah, you load them this way, and then that way for the S3, you can load a, that's SQS. S3, it is resource. Oh, right, and you can pass the credentials right in it. So this one's actually fine. The implementation they're giving us is totally fine. This is a case where I think ChatGPT did a better job than the documentation, whereas in the past I would be spending more time looking for the solution. So we don't need the region per se, but we'll go here. And I guess all we really need is, whoops, did not mean to do that. We'll just go here and we just need the resource. The other thing should get passed as environment variables, so we shouldn't have to set those. There's the bucket name, the object name, so that is true, and we'll grab that stuff. Okay, so our bucket name here is whatever it needs to be. So the thing is, we set these in our env example. That's not the right one. env example here for there, and we didn't actually set these as environment variables down here. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So this one, definitely we want it to be that one. So I'm going to go export and paste this one in here. I'll bump up the font. I realize it's a bit small. Whoops. We'll go down below here. We'll do export like this. And paste it in like that. We'll hit up. GPENV. So now that one's set. And so now I can just grab that and place that in there. Okay, just bring the font down a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. The object name is whatever we want it to be. So I think we decided that we were just going to put them right in the bucket, not put them in subfolders. The name of the file does matter because it should be whatever the user UID we want it to be. So that might be something that is important to us. For now, I'm just going to do anything like mock. So we'll just say mock.jpg. I guess the other thing is, like, if we're generating out the pre-signed URL, how do we know its content type beforehand? Because we want to upload it, but we would need to know its type. So we'd probably have to get some kind of input coming in to set that correctly. Okay, so we'll do the object key as such. And so that will generate the object, and then we have the pre-signed URL. And so let's just print that and see if that works. We'll puts that and see what we get. Okay, so what we can do here is do a, we'll run this. So we're in that directory. So to run that, it'll just be bundle exec and function RB. Bundle exec just says do this in the context of the bundler file. If you don't do that, it might not pick up the gem file, but it might still if we don't even put that in there. I just realized I might be covering the code, so I'm just going to drag over there. It's saying not found in the function RB. Credit upload avatar. Seems like it should be ls. Oh, you know what it is? We got to put Ruby in front of it. It's bundle exec Ruby function. And what is its problem? Unable to find XML library. Ensure that you have installed or added your gem file with one of these. Oh, okay. So I guess it wants one of those. Also notice that the Ruby version here is 3.2.1, and for our Lambda, we can only run 2.7. So we can specify here and say like Ruby, this specific version. I'm not going to do that. 3.1 should work. 3.21 should work with Ruby 2.7. Ruby doesn't break as bad as Python does. Ruby is always updating their versions quite often, so I'm quite comfortable with the range of stuff they're working with. But here it just wants to know that you have an explicit XML library. Nokogiri is what we traditionally use, but it's really heavy. So I think I'd rather have something that's a little bit lighter. I don't know which one is lighter. I'm going to try libxml maybe. Maybe Ox. I don't know what Ox is. Ruby, gem, Ox. But it never would show me that error before. Let's see here. A fast XML parser. I like the sound of that. Let's install Ox. Though Oxes aren't known for being fast. They're just hard workers, right? So we'll do bundle install. And we'll go ahead and wait for that to install. I was hoping that we wouldn't have to install any native extensions. Native extensions means installing some underlying C library. But anyway, we'll go back up here. We'll do bundle exec ruby function.rb. And now we have one error here. It's saying the name option is missing. For what? Is it for the resource function line 7? So this is line 7. Oh, we have a problem right here. Let's hit up again. Let's see if that fixes that issue. And so what it returned back was a pre-signed URL. So we can use this URL to upload data. So traditionally, you could use Postman. There's nothing wrong with Postman. I just figured that maybe we could use something in VS Code. So Postman, a VS Code alternative. What's the number one that's being used right now? paw. Let's try paw, if we can install it. So we'll go here on the left-hand side, and we'll look for paw. Or maybe we'll type in Postman. Maybe that will give us something similar. The reason why we might not see it, even though it exists, is because some of these these only show up when you are using the Visual Studio Code Marketplace, which we are not using. We're using the VSX registry, so there could be different stuff in there. I remember Insomnia. So Insomnia is pretty cool. Let's try Insomnia and see if that works. I mean, I'm looking for something that's in VS Code. Oh, maybe none of those are in VS Code. VS Code. Thunder client. Is there any cost to it? It's free. Okay. Oh, it's the one we are on right now. Well, let's give it a go. I mean, we could also just probably do this in the CLI with a curl, but I figured we'd take a look at this client and see what it can do for us. Say a new request here. Yeah, it looks just like Postman. So I'll just maybe close out some of these tabs here so I can see what I'm doing. And the idea is that we have this URL. So if we copy it up here, I like how it pre-populates. That's pretty cool. We need to pass the data here. So I guess that's the next question is, how do we do that? I'll be back in a second, okay? All right, so I've just been kind of following along here in this one. It's actually for Postman, but it's very similar. The idea is that they have this endpoint that's going to return that. That's what we're basically coding right now. But then they go to body to do binary. And so that's in Postman. Same thing here. So we can upload a file there. We need some kind of file. So I'm going to go to the internet and go grab one. I'm going to go grab Lore from Star Trek. So this is Lore. Looks just like Data, but he's evil, right? There they are. They're actually brothers. So anyway, that's Lore. So we'll get Lore. Can you tell he's the evil brother? And this file is a web PNG. I don't want it as that. So I'm going to go save the image address or save the image as. I'm going to name that to my desktop, and we're going to call this lore.jpg. I don't know why, but it does convert the file over to JPG like that. Or maybe it's still a WebP and it's just I'm mistaken, but if there are no errors, I do not care, at least not right now. So what we'll do is we will upload this file temporarily into Gitpod. I've already lost the tab here, so I have to open my file explorer. Oh, frick's sakes. I opened up Microsoft Edge. I don't want Microsoft Edge. There we go. Open this again. I know I'm doing this off screen, so just give me a moment here. And so I'm looking for this lore JPG, and so we will bring that file over here. We just need it somewhere. So I'll throw it in here. I mean, we don't really want to leave it in our code, but I'll just throw it in here anyway. And so there is our lore. And yeah. And so we'll go back over to the Thunder client. Over here, I suppose. We'll just close these out. And we'll go and upload that file. Now, this might not work because, well, this expires after a certain amount of time, but we'll try anyway. We also have to have permissions. So here it says, the request signature was calculated but does not match the signature you provided. Check your key and signature method. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but that's okay because what we can do is check a couple things, which is how long do we have this for? This expires for 3,600 seconds. So how long is that? Divided by 1,000? I don't know, how long is that, do you think? And what time is it? That's in seconds or... I'm confused. Pre-signed URL, AWS, S3, Ruby. Keeps going to pre-signer. I know this is just another way of doing it, is using the pre-signer. The time is in seconds. Expires in 900. The number of seconds, okay. So if it says seconds, I'm going to go here and then just divide by 60. And so this is for 60 minutes. Is that really true? That's a long time. So this is not expired. But the thing is that we didn't give it any permissions to upload. So just because we have that pre-signed URL, well, I don't know. Actually, we would, because this signature would contain it. We don't need any permissions. The thing that needs permissions is the thing that generates it. And we're using our AWS credentials, so it technically should work. So what's the problem? Signature does not match. Well, it populated all the stuff for us. We didn't do anything. But there aren't any additional headers. Sometimes you need additional stuff in there, but it is in the query param, so I'm kind of surprised it just doesn't work directly. But anyway, give me a little bit of time to debug this. I'll be back because I don't want to bore you with this part. Okay, so I didn't really read this, but it says put here, and now it just made me think, did I even say what type of method or request it's using? So if we go over back to getPod, we're using a get right now. What if we go to, what were they saying, put? It's probably a put. And now let's try it. Oh, we got a 200. That's good. Let's go take a look at our code in, not our code, but our S3 bucket. And if we go into CRUD uploaded avatars, we have that data there. So it's there. It made the file. I'm going to assume that it rendered correctly. I'm going to delete that because I just don't need that right now. So we'll go ahead and say permanently delete. So that's great. Another thing is that I do want to set up like lifecycle management on this at some point. We'll do it later. Well, we'll actually, you know what? We'll look at it for 2 seconds. It's probably super easy. Create lifecycle rule, delete after, or delete old assets. It should be everything. Size doesn't matter. Expire current versions, permanent delete non-current versions, delete expired objects, delete markers are incomplete. Well, I just wanted to delete after a certain amount of time. So move current versions of objects to storage. We're not doing versioning. Expire current versions of objects, permanently delete non-current versions. I don't know what non-current versions are. What is non-current versions S3? Specifies the number of days of a non-current object is non-current before Amazon S3. The value must be 0. I don't know what they mean by non-current. As if they could have made that any more clear by using such cryptic language. So maybe that's what we want. Learn more here. Would that help? Non-current. Current. For a version bucket, the transition applies to the current object version to manage non-current versions. I keep thinking that's what it means when it doesn't have a version at all. Delete expired object, delete markers are incomplete. Maybe that as well. I'm not sure. So we'll go down below here. No, I'm not sure about that. I mean, definitely we don't want incompletes. 1 day, I suppose. Like, what happens if I uncheck this? Okay, so I check this and I get this. Delete objects after objects become non-current. 1 day. Days, right? Number of new versions to retain, 0. Again, don't know what non-current means. Move non-current versions, etc. So, yeah, if they're incomplete, do 1, delete expired object, delete markers. This action will remove the expired object, delete markers, and may improve performance. Expired object, delete markers removed if all non-current versions of the object expire after deleting it. All right, whatever. We are going to go ahead and create this rule. And so now the idea is that it should delete these. Add a filter to limit the scope of this rule to a single prefix. You must specify a prefix or another filter. Don't include the bucket name in the prefix. You must specify an object tag for the filter. Okay, so it looks like in our architecture, we really have to go back and put them in a folder. So before I was thinking about putting them in a folder, but I didn't see the necessity of it. But now we actually have a use case where we have to do that. So we're going to forget this, but we're going to remember this for later because we're going to have to go adjust our serverless pipeline and fix that, okay? I just don't want to tear it down this second. I want to stay on the pre-signed URL stuff. So anyway, our pre-signed URL is clearly working for our, in this method, for our code, and our Ruby function generates that out. Now we have to package this as a Ruby Lambda. So I just need an example of one. So let's just say Ruby AWS Lambda example. And we'll go here. We'll scroll on down to here. There's two ways of doing it. You can do it this way or this way. I prefer to do it the class way. It just looks a lot nicer and it sets you up for refactoring. So I'll go here. And the module here can be, well, we have function. I don't think the module name matters, does it? In your function configuration, the handler sets the Lambda to where it is. So we have function and handler. I think it just ignores the module name. On the class, you can define your handler method in a class. The following example defines a handler method named process on a class named handler in a module. Do we need a module? In this case, it'd be source Lambda functions. Oh, we don't need the module. Get out of here. All right, so now we have that. I'm going to go back over here for a second. The handler setting is that. You know what? We'll just keep it simple for now, and then we'll decide if we need it later, okay? I've definitely done it this way before. I just don't feel like pulling up example code from one of my projects and working through it. So we'll definitely want require JSON. That is built into the standard library, so we don't have to add that to our gem file. So now the next thing is we want to return data. So Ruby always returns the last thing, and so it'll be what the URL is here. We can give an explicit return. We don't have to, right? So I'm just taking it out because this will be returned. I'm just going to put this. This is the data that will be returned. Okay. So that looks good to me so far. The event context stuff, this is going to provide additional stuff, but right now I'm just going to go puts event so we can see that event data. Because when we hook it up to API Gateway, it's going to look a certain way. So I think that is good for our function for now. So what we can do is just copy the contents there, and we can go over to here. And the great part is we can literally just paste it in like this. Oh yeah, so here they have is the JSON response. Actually, that's what I wanted. Because you're supposed to return a JSON response, and so you have to have a status code in the body. The body here is going to be whatever the URL is. So we need to generate out JSON. So what we can do is just do this. We'll say like URL is URL, and we'll say to JSON, and that will be our body. I don't know if we have to do JSON stringify on that, but we'll just say body here. And yeah, I think that's what we want. And this will be the last thing that gets returned, so that is great. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. So what we'll do is we'll copy this, and we'll go back over to here. And I know it's small, so we'll bump that up. Font size. General interface. Not sure how we increase it there, but I'll go ahead and paste it in. It's not that, oh, I'm just doing plus on there, okay. And so this is our code. Yeah, that seems fine. So we'll go ahead and deploy this. I'm just trying to think, it probably needs permissions. That's something it's going to need. So down below in our permissions, this would be under configuration. We'll go over to our configuration tab, permissions tab, sure. And we are looking for the actual role, the execution role. So we'll click into it. And this is where we can attach additional permissions. We will go here, and I'm going to just add an inline policy for now. I'm not worried about it because at some point we will clean this stuff up with CloudFormation or CDK or whatever we want. So here we need to access S3. And we just need pre-signed URLs. Pre-signed, sign, pre-sign. Okay, hold on here. Because there is more than one S3, so let's go up here. Like, there might be sub commands for this. Object lambdas, what's that? Okay. Let's go to write, maybe. What permissions do we... Okay. What permissions do we need to generate pre-signed URL? AWS. That's not very useful. What are the permissions? Okay, we'll ask ChatGPT. What permissions, what AWS IAM permissions do we need to generate a pre-signed URL for upload? Is that it? Okay, so it's literally just put object. That's pretty easy. So we'll go back over to here. We'll say S3, or sorry, put object. I don't think we need ACL. We're not doing ACL controls. The other part here is we'll go to resources, and we want to specify exactly the bucket we're using. We don't want to give access to something that we don't need to do. What is our bucket name? Good question. Again, your bucket name is different than mine, so make sure that you substitute accordingly for your bucket, okay? This is in our env example here. Env example. And so we'll go ahead and grab this one. And we'll paste that in there. We'll say any, because really we can put it anywhere. And we'll say add. And then we'll go ahead and review the policy. S3 bucket policy, or upload avatar, or pre-signed URL avatar policy, I guess. We'll create that policy. I don't want to have to try to find this later, so what we'll do is just expand that and then grab this here. And we'll go over to our JSON. We'll dump it in our AWS directory like we've been dumping everything else. So this will be S3 upload avatar pre-signed URL policy JSON. We'll paste that in there for now, just in case we need it again. But it's pretty straightforward. So now we can go back over to our this thing here, Lambda, and it should be easy to test because we will, we do have to pass in that envar to it. So on the left-hand side here, we have environment variables, and it does need to know where the destination bucket is, even though it's hard-coded for a specific bucket. So we'll go here, and we'll go back over to our code, and to function, and it takes this upload bucket's name, and we'll paste this in here, and then we'll go ahead and grab that bucket name, which is over here, right here. There it is. Again, yours is different from mine. Make sure you change yours for what you need it to be. And we'll go ahead and save that. And so now it should be configured in order to do what we want it to do. So we'll go here and run a test. Now I want to see that envar generated out. The other thing is that the time here is actually quite a lot. I don't like that. So I know this is in seconds, so I'll do 60 seconds times 10 minutes. Or even 5 minutes, because I just don't need it for that long. And that way, you know, because I'm recording the video, if I publish this, you could end up abusing my account. So I don't really want that to happen. So I'm going to go back here and adjust this to our code. And we'll go ahead and deploy that. And so we have that small revision there. It should put out the events. Actually, that would cause an error because there's nothing called events. It's just called event. But I'm curious about what's going to come out here. So we'll go back over here to our code. We'll just take out this one little error. And we'll go back over here and we will do a test. And it does not matter what data we pass in because we don't care about the event data right now. And so it failed to execute undefined method lambda underscore handler. We'll go back over here. I mean, we have handler here. Usually you have to set the handler. So if you go over to maybe code, here it is. It says lambda function, lambda handler. That is not what our thing is called. Ours is called function, and then it's just called handler. What a weird default they had that as. We'll go back over to test. I'm gonna make sure I didn't get that backwards. So we'll go back here. It's function and handler. Yep, that's right. So we will go back and we will test again. And we still have an error. That's okay. Cannot load such file function. Why not? It's called function, is it not? Oh, it's not. It's actually called lambda function over here. So we will rename that file. We'll just call this function. And we will deploy that change. And we will try again. We'll test. Green, yay. So I'm interested in what comes back. And so in the body here, you can see that we have our URL as the body. So this looks like it's all set up to work with API Gateway. Not any kind of error handling on here, but it's pretty darn straightforward. So I think we are okay. We still have to have a authorization lambda before it calls this. Let's go take a look at that JWT thing we looked at earlier. So JWT, Cognito, authorizer, GitHub. Because I think it was this. Or at least it was one that was managed by AWS. Here it is, AWS JWT Verify. So here it says down below, this library was specifically designed to be easy to use in API Gateway Lambda authorizers. And that sounds great to me because that's what I would like to use it for. And we'll use it for AppSync Lambda authorizers. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to try to get this to work now because we do have to do this when we use it with Michael for when we use AppSync. So the question is, what is the easiest way to use this? Let's go over here. So it says the verifier should be instantiated outside the Lambda handler so the verifier's cache can be reused for subsequent requests for as long as the Lambda function stays hot. And that's true. You know, like if you are establishing a connection, like even our client, I was tempted to put it outside the function, but I know the cost of it is very minimal. But here's an implementation. So 2 types of API Gateway Lambda authorizers could be created, token-based or request-based. I did not know there was 2. Well, I guess it'd be a token because we would be passing the token along. So for both the types of authorizers, you could use API Gateway Lambda Authorizer Blueprint as a reference pattern where the token authorizer could be achieved as follows. Well, what's this? As a reference where the token validation as follows. Well, we'll read this one and then we'll read that one. I don't know why there's 2. I mean, this is the full function, so maybe it has the same code in it. I don't know. But let's see. We have JWT verifier, great. User pool ID, token use, access. Yeah, that sounds right. Client ID, read. So these are things that we know that we have. And then down below here is the actual JavaScript function. So the event assumes the authorization token is being passed along. We have await JWT verify, so it'll check the payload. It doesn't do anything else with it. So it doesn't, is it validating it? Like, where's all the other stuff? For request-based authorizers, where Lambda event payload is set to request. Oh, I think it's just how the key is being passed along. Yeah, so see here, we have it in the headers authorization. And then this one, it's somewhere else. But the heading we use is the bearer one, but it's authorization, right? So if we go back over to our code and we just pull up anything that makes that request, we'll close that out of the way here. We'll go, trying to think of a library that we use, or not, like homepage feed. That might be something we check out here. So if we go down here, this is the authorization header. And so maybe what we're doing is we're doing it request-based and not token-based, whatever they're talking about. And I guess that makes sense because we're doing it on a per request basis. But the question I have is still like, this is not fully implemented. This is just getting the payload, right? So, and down below here, it's like verify is authorized false. Maybe it does everything here. Let me read this for a bit. I just want to see if it's checking anything that we're missing, okay? So I think that it is matching the stuff because when you use the verifier, it's probably passing that along and then doing that work underneath. So I think that it actually is okay to use. Now, if there's more to it, I'm not sure, but I mean, we would want to peek inside to look at what the user UID is or the Cognito user ID because we do need to get some data back from it. So maybe what we should be doing is actually storing the Cognito user ID as opposed to the user UID. But then we would be exposing the Cognito user ID on the student side. I don't know if that's really a problem per se. So that is a design consideration. Do we try to get the user UID from the Cognito UID, and do we even store the user ID on the user on the Cognito side? That's not something we do. So this is where when you're architecting, you find out, oh, I should have done this and that, and you have to go back. And so we'll get something working. Probably use the Cognito user ID for now, but that's something we'll have to consider. So I want to go back to wherever that request-based implementation was, because that's what it looked like we need to do. Request. We want examples here for Lambda API authorizer. This one's for REST. And then down here it says an example, because we're using HTTP API right now. This is the other way, and this is another way. An example of a sample HTTP Lambda authorizer is included here as part of the test suite solution. Okay, so they don't even show it here. They link it here. So for this one, oh, it's using headers too. So this one is actually what we're looking for. And so I think this is the code we want. We don't need the assert, but we need some of this. Assert equals. How are they using this here? Just in case I'm mistaken. So here, email, payload, email equals this email. Custom JWT check. So I guess they're just doing like a different kind of check. And this is, I guess they have asserts there. So this is not testing per se in the traditional sense like unit testing. This is just test libraries to test against something. So that's kind of interesting. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and grab this code and we'll go over here. This is called, we'll go make a new Lambda here and we'll just say Lambda authorizer. Right now, I don't know if we need a unique one for API gateway and then AppSync, but I'm going to put this here for now. So this will be index.js, and we'll go ahead and paste this in. And the only thing I'm not sure about right now is we don't really need to have a custom check. At least I don't think we do. I really wish I knew someone on the Cognito team. I really should reach out to them. Well, I do know some people on the Cognito team, but not in the DA space. So there's always things that I'm not 100% sure about, but I just have a lot of confidence on. So we'll go here. The event comes in. This will print out the request, which is useful for us. We get the JWT authorization header. It's going to verify it. Why is it not passing over? Oh, it's up here. So I was going to say, like, where's the user pool and stuff like that, but we have it here. Token use. I don't know what token use means. But they are using header authorization, so I think that's fine. So maybe let's take a look and see what token use is. Like, what is token use? Verify that the JWT token use claim matches your expectations, set to either ID or access. Well, what does that mean? Is that something part of the JWT claim standard? So if I go JWT RFC, like token use, token use, token use. Well, let's just go to claims. Is there something that's like that? Issued at. So I'm not exactly sure what this does. Scopes are are only present on Cognito access tokens. Well, that's what we're doing. We're using an access token. So wouldn't that be what we want to do? Like, to me, this would be an access token, right? But then why does this one have ID? I'm so confused. All right, let's ask ChatGPT if they can figure it out. Why does JWT for Cognito use ID or access? What is the difference? Let's see if we can figure that out. Okay, so we have access token. This token is used to access AWS resources and other protected resources such as APIs. The access token is a bearer token. That's what we're doing. The access token is short-lived. The token is used to identify the user to provide basic user information. So we care about the access token. So we'll go back over here. We'll change this to access, and hopefully that is what we think it is. Here it's trying to load in the user pool ID, the client ID. That's fine. We can grab those in a second. But yeah, I don't think we need to match the email there. That's kind of pointless. So we'll go down here. And so this looks like it does something. It's going to return true or false. So I think that is the authorizer that we want to have. This has to get installed into the package.json. So we will need to create a package.json or install this. So we'll go back over to, my whole face gets itchy because of the light in here. It drives me crazy. I'm trying not to scratch or like rub my face or scratch my face, but the more you think about it, the more you do it. So I really do apologize for doing that frequently through the video. It just gets hot here under these lights. So what I'm looking for here is this. So we'll go here and do npm install, and we'll go back over here and we'll say npm install. Just take this out here. This is messing up, so we'll try this again, or we'll paste it in again. And I want to do save, because we need to save that. And so that will bring in the wrong folder. Sorry. We'll go ahead and delete this, delete permanently. This doesn't have a package.json, so we'll delete that there. Okay, and we'll just cd back for a second. And then we'll go into Lambda authorizers. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this in, and we'll say save. So yeah, we have this Lambda now. And we need to get it deployed, which is a bit of a headache because we need both the node modules and the package.json. Again, this might be easier if we start using CDK, but for the time being, we're just going to rough it here. Really what we need to do is just zip the contents of this folder. So I think that's what we'll do. So I'll just go here and then just zip this. Can I zip it? If I download it, will it turn into a zip? Probably not. So I'll make a new folder on my desktop. So I'll just do this. And we'll call this Lambda authorizer. I don't feel like figuring out how to write this. I've done zips and stuff like that. I'm not going to try to figure that out. So we'll go ahead and download. And what it'll do is choose a location that I want to download in. So on my desktop here, we'll go into Lambda authorizer. I'll select that folder. We'll allow it to view files. We'll save changes. We'll download the contents here. I'm not sure if it'll be really slow because of all those node modules, because that's usually the headache of this. And we'll say allow. It might be really fast. We'll see here. Maybe this is a mistake. Is it downloading? It must be. Did it download? Where'd it go? File does not have an app associated with performing this action. Well, I just want to see where it is. Okay, we can try this again. Did it download all the other stuff in it? Looks like it did. We don't even need the SDK in here, do we? It's crying here. I'm just trying to close this out. Please close Windows. No, 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 no. Don't crash. Okay. Come on, Windows. Come on, Windows. Please don't do this to me today. There we go. Okay, so it didn't download the other ones. We'll try this again. Well, I don't need all the other ones. I'm just going to go here and download these. And I'll open this again. Did it download in the folder? It's not downloading them there. Where are they going? Download. It's not even letting me choose where they are. Can you show me what folder you put these in? Into my downloads. Why? I was telling you where to download. So one thing goes where it's supposed to and the rest don't? Okay, whatever. Hashtag annoyed. Okay. So now it's in here, so I'll just zip this up. Send to compress zip. Lambda authorizer. And so what we can do is go over to here. And we'll go back to our functions here. And we'll create a new one here. This will be CRUDR API Gateway Lambda Authorizer. This probably is node 18, I would imagine. x86, that's fine. Advanced stuff, I'm not sure what permissions it needs. Because really all it's doing, it doesn't need permission to anything because it's not doing anything. Well, I guess it might need permissions to go to Cognito. No, it doesn't, because it doesn't need to go call Cognito. Yeah, you don't need anything. This is like a super simple function. So we'll go ahead and create this here. And we can upload our function. Sometimes it's easier to just like work through stuff in here and then go figure it out later. It really just depends on how you like to do it. Where's this zip? Here it is. We'll upload that. Consider uploading to S3. Yeah. It's small. We'll figure that out later. Okay, and is all the code still viewable? Well, that's nice. That'll make it easy for us to debug. So this is now up. The question is, will it work? I don't know. We didn't do anything too crazy here, so I expect it to kind of just work. And we're using AWS's code, so it definitely better work. But we were creating that API gateway over here. And at the time, we did not have a Lambda. So is it going to show up there for us? No. Their API always does that to us, so we'll go back. And we'll try this again. We will build a new one. We'll add integrations. We will choose Lambda. We will drop this down. CRUDR API Gateway Authorizer. Well, actually, we want that later. We actually want this to go to CRUDR Avatar Upload. That's actually where we want it to go. And in here, this will just be, what would this be? Like, because the thing is, you can put custom domains on this. But the thing is that our API is being served up somewhere else. So, you know, what would I really want to call this? And I guess your load balancer could redirect traffic to particular places. So like if we had particular routes, we could do that. So I'm just going to type in apicrudr.com, even though I realize it's the same name. I think that's okay. And we'll say next. And so the resource path is this. This would be avatars. Because this isn't the upload. This is just getting the key back. So avatars key upload. And so it'll go there. I guess we're just getting stuff. We're not really posting anything, are we? So we'll say get, and we'll go next. Stage name is default. That seems fine to me. So this looks good. Let's see if we can go now add that authorizer, however that works. So somewhere here, yeah, on the left-hand side, we have authorizers. And attach authorizers to routes, manage authorizers, maybe is the first thing we want to do. IAM is built in. That sounds cool, but that's not what we want. So use JSON JWT to control access. That's technically what we're doing. But then why do we have this? Enter the issuer URL of the identity provider commonly found in the issuer for the authorization server's well-known endpoint. Oh, so it's like you're pointing it to some kind of URL. So maybe this is something. I think it's Lambda that we want. This sounds like you have to point it to an identity provider. Like maybe you can point it to Facebook. I don't know. Like because they'd have like an any provider website. We'll go to Lambda here, and this will be CRUD JWT authorizer. And we'll drop this down, and here we have that authorizer. So hopefully that just works. Response type, simple or IAM policy. Your Lambda function returns an IAM policy document. Didn't know it could do that, but we just want simple. Your Lambda function returns a single Boolean value. Oh, right. So what the authorizer is going to return. Lambda function returns an IAM policy document. I think a simple one is what we want. And that's what I think it does. So if we go back over here, it's a Boolean. Now it's not just returning Boolean, it says is authorized, so I'm not sure about that. An IAM policy document, which is not really what it does. Authorized caching, I think we want to cache. For now, I'm going to turn it off, because the thing is that if you have it cached, then the idea is that, it'll probably speed up the Lambda or something. I don't know, but we're just going to turn it off for now because I'm not sure. API gateway needs permission to invoke the Lambda. Yeah, we'll give it permission. And so now we have that there. We'll go over here. We'll click on that. We will create and attach an authorizer. No, we just can attach one here. This seems fine. We'll attach it. And so now we have an attached authorizer. The question is, can we use this easily? The other thing is is this deployed? So we'll go ahead and deploy, and we'll choose our default here. A deployment is a snapshot of your API's configuration that can be associated with each stage. So I'm used to using REST, and with REST, you always have to deploy before you can use anything. But it says auto deploy enabled. So it sounds like if we're on default, it's always going to deploy to that. So it doesn't sound like we need to do anything additional. And so this seems to be our invoke URL so that we can use. And so actually, should we be using a get? Because if we are passing in the bearer token, can you pass headers like that? Yeah, you can. I guess it's just a body you can't pass along. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and invoke this, I guess, and see what happens. So if I go, I'm expecting this not to work because we're not invoking it from our application, which doesn't have the bearer token. So if we go avatar, what do we call it? Key upload? Our routes is called key upload. Where did endpoint go? Where did you go? Oh, it was right here. Hit enter. Message unauthorized. That's fair because we're not doing it in the way that we think we're doing it. The other question, though, would be, are we even returning the right type of thing? Like, is the Boolean right? Because they're returning it as a JSON object, and that might be an issue. But what we'll do is we'll go and see if that Lambda was triggered. Because maybe it errored out. Maybe it didn't work at all. And so if we go back over here to our Lambda into our CRUD API authorizer, we'll go over to our configuration, and we will check out our logs wherever that is. And we'll go ahead and view those CloudWatch logs. I'm hoping that it's logged something out for us here. So let's find out. And Lambda log does not exist in this account or region. So that's telling me that this Lambda's never been triggered. But maybe it's not triggering at all if you don't pass along a bearer token. So it might be smart enough that it's like, hey, we didn't even see this header here, so forget about it. We're not even going to run it. So that's another thing that we have to find out. So what we'll do is our application should be running. Did we get it running here? It is, but I don't see data, so I probably need to run the database, right? So we'll do bin. CD back out of here. I'm going to just do bin db or db setup. And then we'll have to do our DDB stuff. Schema load. And then we'll have seed. Okay, so more stuff going along there. Now, if we go back over to here, we should go here and see some data. We do, that's good. So we need to invoke this from our application here, capital T testing 1, 2, 3, exclamation mark. We'll just sign in here. So on our profile page and here, we've added something right here, upload avatar. And so that needs to trigger the request that we want. So what we'll do is we will go into our application, into profile edit here, or wherever it is, profile heading. No, it's profile form. And we need to write something that's going to send out that HTTP request. So basically we want something very similar to this. So what I'll do is go ahead and grab most of this, and I'll just paste it in here. Not that it's a button, so we don't really need to have these prevent default stuff, but we'll have our URL here. So this is going to be the URL of our application there, this one here. So go ahead and grab that. And so I'll paste that in. Of course, yours is different. Do not use mine or you will not get the same results. So that's there. Then we can actually pass that access token that it's expecting. These are fine. These are all fine. We cannot pass a body like this when we are using a GET request. So I'll just take that out and wipe that out there. I don't know. I mean, maybe we should actually be using a post because we are doing something. We're not just doing nothing. So maybe that's what I'll do. I'm going to go back and change it to a post and then also I don't have to worry about like whether the headers or something is not set correctly. So let's go back to our API gateway, wherever it is. I can close out some of these tabs so I can see what I'm doing. We'll leave our friend ChatGPT open just in case it wants to help us. We're going to make our way over back to API gateway. And so in here, we'll go into API gateway. Can we just easily update this route? Edit. Yes, we can. Post. Oh, that is lovely. And so that will auto deploy. We don't have to do anything for that. So now I can go back and now I can just leave this as a post. And so I have a lot more confidence about this. This response is going to return something, some kind of data. I'm going to print it out for now. So just say, I'm trying to remember what language we're using here. Console log data, pre-signed URL. So that is what we're trying to get back. Exciting. I don't know why this catch is complaining. It's expecting a comma somewhere. Where? Where do you want the comma? Is it also a problem down here? No. It seems like we must have something extra. So this matches this. Let's take that out. There we go. That's better. Okay, so we're trying to get this to log out. Now, will it log out? I guess we'll find out. So we'll go back over here and we will refresh. And now the page doesn't load, so we must have a JavaScript error, which is great. And so we go up here and our problem is we're missing a comma around this area here. And there is an error down below here. Actually, we have this one. So that one makes sense. Then this is the fetch. So I mean, that looks correct to me. But there is still an error here. Oh, there's two curlies. Another curly? Okay, so now it's happy. All right, we'll go back over here. We'll refresh. Do we have a console log in here just so we know what this is getting called? Console log, S3 upload, just in case. Do we have the event on this? On click. Where is it? Here. And I just want to be able to see what I'm doing. So for now, we're just going to go and give this a bit of styling. This is in the profile form CSS. Just profile pop-up here. And we'll just go here and say color RGB or white, background green, just so we can see what we're doing. There it is. So if I click it, here we have a failed to fetch. It seems like it probably called it though, right? We have a 404 error. It's saying that this does not exist. I'll be back in 1 second, okay? Sorry, I just was scratching my nose more. I'm sorry. Okay, so the it's saying this is a 404. That's okay. It doesn't think that it exists. That's fine. This is doing, well, that's doing the options. And that's passing the bearer token. So what's its problem? What kind of requests are these? These are posts, right? Doesn't say. I know it's a post. We'll just copy this for a second and I'll bring this up here. Message not found. Is that different from what we were doing before? Let me see here. This is message not found now. So that other one was message unauthorized. Okay, so did our URL change maybe when we updated our post? Maybe it was smart enough to just like retroactively, or not retroactively, but it was smart to update it. So we'll go over to our stages, we'll look at default. And the question is this different? And we'll go up over to here. And I'm just looking at the JS where we call this here. We'll just close this out so it's a bit easier to find. I'm just looking at the time. It's 4. Okay. So I'm going to just paste this in below here. And does this match up? That is identical. Okay. But saying message not found. And we're doing a post. Now, do you think it might have not taken effect and that's why it's complaining? So like, for instance, well, no, because the other one's a get and this one's a post. And they're both saying message not found. So, you know, what could be causing that? Okay. API gateway. Okay, since you didn't create any stages, that means the default is the default. The route that you configured isn't correct. You need to set the route to default and add the integration to your endpoint as such. So go to your API, routes, select routes, choose any method as the type in the path with / attach integration. What's the integrations for? Integrations. Oh, there is a thing here. Deploy. Deploy. Nope. I mean, that shouldn't be our issue. I mean, we did integration. Isn't integrations and authorizations the same thing? Attach integrations to routes. Oh, integrations is what we're integrating into. So it's actually the Lambda that we've attached. Okay, that makes sense. But still, the question is why is this route not working? We didn't change anything. Let's click on the stage name. Do we have to include the stage name somewhere? Am I like mistaken for something? Let's try this again. Avatars upload. Message not found. That totally makes sense. Well, we can change it back to a get if it just makes our lives a bit easier, but I would rather have it to be a post. I just don't want to be goofing around with this all day, or maybe it's like caching it or doing something weird. We'll go back and do a get here. And now if we do that and we go back here, I don't know. Give me a second, okay? Okay, one thing I noticed was that this was upload instead of key upload, so maybe we wrote it wrong in our code. No, it says key upload here. I'm just gonna copy this again. I mean, this one was wrong, but now it's saying unauthorized, which is better. So I'm gonna go back to my application and maybe I've resolved the issue. I don't know. We'll click this again. And here I get a 404, but what is it sending out? That's an options, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll be back in a second. So I think the thing is like, you know what? We have that options that go out. That's usually used for cores. At least that's what I remember it's for. And usually that's to do a pre-flight request. And so the idea is that it's going here. It's saying 404. It's not expecting to get that. So I'm thinking that this is actually a CORS issue. Oh, it does. It says CORS right there. That's probably what we're having. So we'll have to go configure CORS. I've always found this kind of a pain to implement an API gateway, at least in REST API gateway, but we're using HTTP gateway, so we'll see if this is better. But CORS here, we can update this so that we can pick what we want it to be. So we have the origins and methods allowed. So here we have options. We're going to have get, right? So those are the two that we're going to allow. Allow control, expose headers. I'm not really worried about that. Allow access control. So we can say, where do we want this to be permitted? Right now, I'm going to just allow it to be on Gitpod. So I'll do this. Of course, we don't want to leave it like this because we want it to be for our production one, or maybe we would make like a command that would update this. So you know how we have our DynamoDB, our RDS instance, but we have a security group that updates it. We might want to do that to secure our local development, because we don't necessarily want to open this up to all of Gitpod, but this is definitely better than just putting an asterisk. So we'll go ahead and hit save, and we'll see if that just takes effect. Normally you'd have to do a deploy and enable it per route. It's quite the headache, but I think in HTTP, it's very straightforward. It'll just take effect. So let's go back there and see if that makes any kind of difference. I'm gonna just click it again, and we'll go back over here, and now we're getting a 204. So that is good. That is what we want, or at least I think that's what we want. But it still says CORS issue. So I'm not 100% sure why. So let me go back here, and we'll give this a refresh. No, not like we need a refresh, but we'll try this again. We'll click it, and we'll go down below. This is where people are going to get really frustrated, is this CORS stuff. And so we get a 204 back. A 204 is good. What is this? This is a get, right? Did we just leave this as a post? Is that why? That's a get. Okay, let's go. I kind of wanted to have it as a post. Okay, so I'm going to change it back to post, because before our problem was something else. And I'll go into here and I'll change this to a post. We'll save that. We'll go back to our CORS. We'll configure our CORS, and we will change this to be a post. And so now I think we'll be in better shape. We'll go ahead and save that. And we'll go back over here to our app. We'll refresh. We'll try this again. We'll click the button. And now what do we get? We get still CORS issues. It's going to show us, like, where's the method? That's better. Post plus pre-flight check, right? I mean, this one's erroring out as well, but that's probably for a different reason. Actually, why is that one erroring out? Why are we getting that's a 500 error though. But it's not erroring out on other pages, right? Just this one. I don't know if that's related. So just before we deal with that, I'm just going to go and take a look and see why that's complaining. Just if for some weird reason that was related. I don't think it is though. So we are looking for Docker here, and then we are going to open up our production logs if this ever decides to open. Here we go. User's bio does not exist. Okay, I know why that is. It's because we need to run our migrations. The other thing is that I guess this was an oversight of our migration, is that it doesn't update our schema file. So we have to run the migrations every time. So that's something else that would have probably been useful, is that if our schema was generated up by our migrations, but it's not. So I'm going to go here and just run db migrate, I suppose. db migrate. Okay, and then that error will go away. So we don't have to keep dealing with that. I'm just going to update the schema manually. Actually, I'm just going to leave it alone for now, because maybe we'll have to come back and tweak this schema stuff that we've done. But I'll go here, at least since we don't have that error anymore, it just makes me feel a lot more comfortable here. And so I'll go ahead and click this, and then we'll see what we get. Still getting CORS issue on the post. So yeah, what else does it want? So it has options, it has posts, but do we have to set this stuff? So give me a second, I'll be back in a moment. All right, so I'm just reading up on expose headers, and I mean, we do use authorization, so I'm just gonna grab these two, and I just think that probably that's our problem, is that we need to be able to pass along a lot more stuff. So I'm gonna configure this, and oh, why is our origin not set? Was it not set before? No origins are allowed. What? But we set gitpod.io. What are you talking about? Okay, cancel here, and let's configure this again. Asterisk.gitpod.io. Let's just make it asterisk for now. We'll save it. Let's just try it again. Am I going crazy here? Is this not saving? Or is it just messing with me? Configure. Oh, do I have to hit the add button? Okay, but we still might need to add those authorization headers in there. I'm not 100% sure because I just am not reading that that much in detail. But we'll go here and click again, and we still have CORS issues. Okay, but we are passing along an authorization header. So what I'm going to do is take the recommendation of Mozilla, and maybe Mozilla knows something that I don't know. But we'll go back over to our, where's our CORS? Over here, and we'll configure it. And we'll just go, and this says allow origin, allow access headers. Why do we have to have it on both? All right, I'll just put both in, I guess. Allow access, allow credentials. What's that? Response headers tell browsers whether to expose the response to the front-end JavaScript when the request credentials mode credentials. Browser will only expose this for this. Credentials are cookies, authorization headers, or TLS client certificates. Don't we need to have that for authorization headers? Okay, well, I'm going to do this, but if anyone disagrees with me and thinks there's something not great, then I'm happy to change it. It says, is not supported with the allow origins for everything. All right, well, let's just try this, and then we can always narrow it down to gitpod.io and work from there, okay? I hate CORS. I absolutely hate CORS. Keeps our site safe. Still doesn't work. We'll go back over here. We'll configure this. We will turn this on to this. And instead of this, I'm going to take this off. I'm going to say gitpod.io. Because that's where this is coming from right now, is gitpod.io. And we will save this. It didn't add it, so I'll configure it again. Add, save. Cannot have a wildcard. Okay, well, let's just give it the actual path. This here. I was just trying to make it a little bit more flexible for the next time we use it, but if this is what it wants, this is what it wants. Add that. Now is it happy? Look, it's happy now. Let me just refresh this, make sure this is still working because I can't tell with all those weird errors. It looks like these are set. Great, let's go try it again. We'll go edit profile here. We'll hit upload. We'll go back. Still having CORS errors. Oh, it's frustrating. But like, wouldn't a 204 be good? 204. 204 status code. What does that stand for? No content. Success status indicates that a request has succeeded, but the client doesn't need to navigate away from its current page. Okay, well, that's good, I guess, but we still have a CORS problem. So we support options and post. Anyway, I'll be back. I'll just go research more. All right, so I don't have a solution for the CORS yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stop here for now. The code we're going to keep is still good. But in order for us to finish this implementation, I do have to go either reach out to AWS support or have Baco give it a go and see if he can figure out the CORS issue. CORS issues like this, very common, very frustrating. When you figure it out, you have it in your CloudFormation template CDK and you never deal with it again. I can't find any good examples right now, so I just have to do some deep digging. It's not going to block us if this is not done because we'll move on to other weeks and always come back to this. But for now, it's being paused. But we have solved mostly everything. The only thing that we would have to do after this is get the pre-signed URL and use it to do the upload. So technically, we could do that implementation. So maybe we should do that, and then this one component will just be floating here until we solve it. So that is, I think, a good idea. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that, because all we need to do for the submit is to use that pre-signed URL. So yeah, that's what we'll do. So we have the S3 upload. This is really like S3 upload key, right? So we'll go down below here and find that here. S3 upload. And I'm going to have another one which is like actually upload, like get avatar key. For real. I just got to call it something for now, because one will actually be the upload and one will be the actual key here. And so if we go back over here, we want something very similar, with the exception that this is now going to whatever that, that URL is. So this will be whatever that pre-signed URL is. So we'll just generate out one manually and then place it in here. Really do not commit that to your code, because it is basically like a live token. And maybe AWS might notice and complain or lock you out of your own AWS account, so you don't want that. But we don't need to pass the authorization token. At this point, we need to pass along binary data. And so that data is going to get attached on the onChange event. So really what we need is a file upload here. It's like we're using the click, but that's not going to work for us. So we'll go down below here. Instead of doing an on-click, we'll have to put an input field here. Type equals file. Name equals avatar upload for now. And then here we'll do an onChange. I'm assuming we can do an onChange here, so we'll do S3 upload. And the idea is that when we click that, then we'll know, how do we name the label for input upload? Do we? Input upload, I just forget. File. I'm not typing that all the time. Oh, it's name, no, that's not it. Okay, well, but really we only want to accept one or the other here, so that actually is something that's interesting. I didn't know you could do that, so we'll put that there, and this is where we actually want to trigger that upload. We'll go back over here, refresh, see if that element is here. So I'll just give this a refresh. And it doesn't like something. It's up here where it's complaining. Has already been declared because we're declaring it twice by accident. So I'll go back up to here, and this one will actually be S3 upload. We don't need the access token for that, so we'll take that out, because at this point we just have a URL. We're just sending it over there. The other thing is we need to access the files. I know I've done this in my code base before, so I'll just take a look here what it looks like. So I'm just in one of mine here. I'll go to JavaScripts. This is CoffeeScript, so it's going to look a little bit funny for you. But if we go into components, I'm just using it as a reference here. I'm just looking here. So the idea is that we do an onChange. This is on click. I mean, I guess you can do it on click, but you have to watch it on the input onChange. It has to be on the onChange. That's right. Well, where is that? Oh, it's right here. Okay, so it is being applied to the field. And so the idea is that in the event, we'll actually have targets file. So that's what we're actually looking for here. So if I go up to here, we should have this event targets file. And we could probably console log that out just to make sure that it's a file. Okay, and I'm just gonna go back to this reference code. Again, you don't have this and you don't need it. We can create ourselves a URL, so that's definitely something that we want. So I'll go over here, and I'll just paste this in. So this is now just the file. Going back over to this. Oh, that's if we want to do a preview image, which actually might be very useful for us. For now, I'll just paste this in here. I don't know if we want to do a preview image, but we can put this in here. Preview images are kind of cool. These probably should have lets in front of them or const something. So I'm not in Ruby right now. And going back over here to this. Yeah, I guess name, size, type. Because this is stuff that we can get about the actual image or file. So like, we just want to do this here for a second. That's what this stuff is. And I'm just going to go here and type in file name, size, and type. It might get repeated in the first one, but we'll do that anyway. Preview image URL we're not using right now. That's totally fine. And so the idea is that we have this file and we need to pass it as binary data. So that's a good question. How do we do that? Let's go ask ChatGPT. Pass binary data to fetch for JavaScript. Okay, well, I mean, they're just passing it like that. So pass a file to fetch in JS. Is it just going to be in the body again? Because it could be form data, right? So this is a little bit different, where you create a form and then you append it and then you put it here. I mean, that might be how we have to do it. So we can try that and see if that works. So I'll go here and we'll go down here and we will just say form data. And this will just be the file here. And then we pass that in as the body. Form data. So that might work. So now what we need is we need the actual code here, this to generate out something for me. So right now, this is not getting called. So what I can just do is call it handler here, and then we can just say like puts the results. We don't want to save this, like we don't want to commit this to our code, because this is like we don't want to upload that to Lambda. This is just for debugging purposes, so we can get that. So I'll go over to another tab. Doesn't really matter which one. I'm just going to CD back here, and we'll go into the AWS Lambdas CRUD upload avatar here, and I'll do bundle exec Ruby function RB. Yeah, it doesn't know what these are because I didn't pass them in. So I'm just going to go here and just say like event equals event. These mean that they wanted to explicitly pass in as named arguments. That's how it works for Ruby. So I think we can just do that. And then the other one will just be, it doesn't matter. We're not using these for anything, so I'll just do this. And I'll hit up. Required name option, that's for the bucket. It should know what the bucket name is, but why doesn't it know what the bucket name is? Maybe it was set because we exported in another scope, so it doesn't know what it is here because it didn't set it for all of them. So I'm just going to redundantly set it here, even though we do have it set correctly. We'll just say export here. And then we'll run it again. And so we got back here this URL. So I'm just going to grab that out here. Like this. I think it comes with the /, I think, or /, I think that's part of it. Or actually, no, it's probably escaping the other one. So it's probably here to there. And so we'll go back over to our code. Again, I do not want you to commit this. This is just us for testing for here. So I place this in here. And so the idea is that I want to test if that works and see if we can make this work. So we'll go back over here and in S3, we probably need to delete that file. So I'm going to go back over to S3 for a second. We have 5 minutes to get this working because that's when that will expire from the time that we set it. So I'll go over to S3 here. And I'm going to go back to buckets here. Crutter. Oh, it's already deleted. Perfect. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go back over here. We'll refresh the application. Hopefully it works. Good. We have a choose file. And we'll go to our desktop. Oh, you know what? I bet that thing actually is a WebPG, and that's why it's not showing up. So I'll go back over here, and where is our file upload? It is here. So that's not like bad. It's just the fact that that content type is clearly something else. So I guess I really shouldn't be renaming WebP like that. I thought it would work though. Desktop, where is it? All files. Can I not upload images? Oh, here we go. And we'll go to data. Maybe we were never on the desktop and I was just confused. And so I ran that over here. It's going to say file name is not defined, but we are getting some data back, are we? Let's go here. Constant file. So we don't log until later. So maybe we should log out what event is. We'll go up here to form data, console log out event. Maybe it's not exactly what we think it is. Try this again. We'll choose lore. We'll say save. We'll go back here. And we get back this. Okay, well that still seems right. We go to target. Do we have files here? We do. We have files. We have 0 and it's lore, and it shows us the data name, last, stuff like that. So why would it complain down here saying that it doesn't work? Maybe if we were to console log this out, we would get something else. So what do we get if we console log out the file just here by itself? File, event. We'll put this down here because this is something else, obviously. We'll go back, refresh here. And if I hit the edit profile, we'll try this again. We'll choose lore. We'll go back over here. And so it does return file here, but it's not called file name. It's just called name. I've been watching a lot of Beavis and Butthead, and so like anytime there's like an F, I always think fire. But we're looking for file. It's only funny if you know Beavis and Butthead. If you don't, that's okay. I think the issue is that we don't have const in front of these. That's what it's complaining about. I think that's really the issue here. We'll go back here and refresh. We'll probably have to regenerate that URL there that we were using, and we'll go back and try this. We'll go back over here. Post failed. Okay, well, I mean, we're getting somewhere. And the issue here is with cores. Cores. It loves the cores problems. So, cores. Why? And this one's giving us a 403, not authorized. So, well, there's 402, which means unauthenticated, and there's 403, which is not authorized. So maybe the issue is our key has expired. So let's just rule that out. So we'll go back over to our Crutter application or backend here. We'll run this again, and then we'll go get the new key. So this will be this one. And we'll go here and just paste this in. Okay, and we will try this again. See if this works. And now what do we get? 403, cores. Cores. It's cores all around. Cores. I mean, like, we were uploading this when we had this URL, we were able to just attach binary data, no problem. So it could be that there's some way we're passing the data along that's incorrect. If we go over to this thing here, which we did here a while ago, the body, oh, so there's a form and there's a binary type. What's the difference? Passing binary data, JavaScript puts. Because it might not actually be form data. Okay, we'll go back here, S3. Pre-sign URL, that's what that's using. I'm just trying to see some JavaScript anywhere. Give me some JavaScript, people. Okay, that's fine. Show me the JavaScript. Show me the JavaScript. That is not useful. They showed me no JavaScript. They did not even do it. Okay. I know I've done this before. Absolutely. So it's somewhere in here. I'm going to go find it. I'll be back in a second. All right, so I found the implementation where I wrote it in TeacherSeat, and we're not even using fetch. It's just XML HTTP request directly up there. We have a put. The pre-signed URL is passed along. I don't know what true does. That's fine. I don't know if we have to set this request header, but I do for whatever reason. And then the other thing is that we're sending it directly there. This is the file. We're not doing form data. So maybe that's its issue, is that you literally just pass it along. Not issue per se, but just how it works. Again, I'm that hardcore. I don't use a library. I just write XML, HTML requests directly. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So we'll go back over here. And so in here, this is body. But could we just pass the data in that way? So like, could I just go file and then do that and that would work? The problem is I don't know what this fetch thing does. It's kind of frustrating. I'm almost tempted to replace it and just use HTTPR requests because I know exactly what it's doing. But we can change this and take this out and see if that makes a difference. So I can try this again, but probably since this is ran, this is expired. So I'll run this again and we will go ahead and grab ourselves this one here. And I'll just go ahead and replace that. So I have a new one. Paste. Thank you. And we'll go back over here and retry this again. It's just the fact that we have that fetch abstraction. That's what I mean, where it's like, I like to use base things because then I don't have to guess what's going on. So I go over here. Still a 403. Yeah, I really don't know how this stupid fetch thing works. Upload file, binary fetch, JavaScript. So here, yeah, it looks like we do have to pass the content type. It's doing post, which is fine. Body is the file, headers is the content type. So maybe we do have to set the header for the content type here. But the content type here, we have application JSON, which is not true. So maybe that's the reason why it might be messing up. Also, this is supposed to be a put, right? Not a post. So that could be the other issue that we're having there. And so this is going to be whatever the type is up here on the file. So that is another thing. And maybe that's going to resolve our issue. So we'll go and refresh that. We'll try this again. And we have a 403, still not working. Just in case we didn't do a hard refresh, I'm going to do a hard refresh just in case. And we'll try this again. And we'll go back over here. And I still have a 403. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure why it's not working. Anyway, we'll leave it here for the time being, but there's still lots for you to do. But yeah, we have cores on one side and cores on the other. So welcome to my world. Cores is always the problem. But what I'll do is I'll pass this problem on to Bako, and he'll fiddle with it. I'm sure he'll do something that I don't do that makes it work, because we just need to figure out what the solution is at this point. I can go down a layer and go use, like as we were doing, and use the native library of the browser, and then that could rule out another thing. I just don't want to do that right now. But for now, this is pretty good. So just understand that we're leaving this in a broken state, but we have set up a lot of the piping or plumbing here, so we can come back to that. I'm going to just stop that for the time being, and I'm going to stop the video here, and I'll see you in the next one. And I'm just going to add all this code here and say, let's refresh this. Almost get uploading working through. Almost get avatar uploading working. So yeah, just understand this one's incomplete, but we know, and we'll solve it at some point.